All right, so the topic tonight is prayer. We were just talking a little bit about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but now more specifically on the topic of prayer. Why do we pray, and what is Jewish prayer all about? So the first thing I'd like to look at is a piece of text from Maimonides. And if you're on Zoom, and it's just a short paragraph, I'll read it out loud. But if you'd like to see it in the text, I posted on the website, jewishiceland.com/class. jewishiceland.com/class. There's a little PDF button, and you could see the text. It's just a short text, so if you want, you could just listen to me reading it. And it's really the background of the mitzvah of prayer and what prayer, is about. So I'll just read it quickly. It's a positive Torah commandment to pray every day. As it states, you shall serve God, your Lord. Tradition teaches us that this service is prayer. As it states, and serve him with all your heart. And our sage has said, which is the service of the heart? This is prayer. The number of prayers is not prescribed in the Torah, nor does it prescribe a specific formula for prayer. Also, according to the Torah, there are no fixed times for prayer. Okay, so what is the mitzvah of prayer? What do we know from the Torah? What do we know from the Bible? So it just says that everyone should pray. There's no prayer book. There's no prayer time. All of this came later in history, and we'll learn some of the history today. But what's important to know from the Torah, from the text of the Torah, is that there is a mitzvah to pray to God. When you have whatever you want to say, every single day. But the details of what you should say and how you should say it and all of that is not from the Torah. That came later on. So if you open up a prayer book that we have here, or if you go to any synagogue around the world, you open up a prayer book, you'll see that there are the daily prayers. There are 3 daily prayers on a regular day. So where do these prayers come from? So our sages tell us that the 3 prayers that we have every single day, Shacharit, Mincha, and Arvit, were instituted by our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Each one of them, composed another of these 3. And then later, once the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, once the Holy Temple was destroyed, so the Holy Temple was kind of the center of Judaism. Jewish people would go there 3 times a year, even if they lived far away. That was really where everything happened. Once that was missing, so the rabbis instituted the 3 daily prayers. So even though up until that point there was no idea of praying 3 times a day, but they said in order to fill this void of the sacrifices in the Holy Temple, these prayers are going to be in the place of the sacrifices, so that when you say the morning prayer, the one Shacharit, the one that Avraham composed, so that corresponds to the morning sacrifice that they brought in the Holy Temple. So in this way, we remember that we remember the service and the korbanot, the sacrifices that were brought in the Holy Temple. But also, we could try to achieve the same thing. We could try to, just like they were, serving God with the sacrifice, we could serve God with the prayer. So it's kind of taking the place of the prayer. Now, I think one of the main questions I would like to
taking the place of the sacrifice.
Of the sacrifice, exactly. I think one of the main and most important questions I would like to discuss and think about tonight is, what is prayer, right? So if you open up a prayer book, we're spending a lot of time asking for our needs, right? Now it's Rosh Hashanah. We're thinking about the new year. They say, whatever you did last year in Rosh Hashanah, don't do it again. It didn't work out. 2020 wasn't such a great year. But on a serious note, we spend a lot of time asking for our needs. We're asking for good health. We're asking for success in our business, that we should have a happy family. All of the things, we're asking for our needs. That's what the prayer is full of. But is that what prayer is all about? Is asking needs what prayer is all about? We asked this question on the email on Facebook. Doesn't God know what we need? Doesn't God know what we need? And if he does know what we need, why do we need to pray? Why do we need to ask for it? Another thought is, if prayer is just about asking needs, then perhaps the word for prayer, the word that we use for prayer in Hebrew, might be the incorrect word, right? So how do you say prayer in Hebrew?
Tefillah.
Tefillah. Tefillah. Now, if prayer is asking for our needs, there are many words that you could use in Hebrew that are, much better than the word tefillah. Omri might be able to help me here with words, but you have bakasha is, asking for needs, or she'elah, you're asking for something. So if prayer is only about asking needs, then we got tefillah as the wrong word. Right, so there must be something more to prayer. So tefillah is usually translated as prayer, but it doesn't really, it's not the best word for asking for our needs. And we'll get to probably a more accurate translation of the word tefillah in a couple of minutes. But I think what we're trying to realize and think about now is that there's something more to prayer than just asking needs. Because if it was just asking needs, then doesn't God know what we need already? If he's capable of giving us what we need, if he's powerful enough that he's capable of giving us what we need, then he probably knows what we need. And if he knows what we need, then why do we need to ask for it? Okay. So there must be something more to prayer. I think that I might have forgotten to add this piece of text here. Yeah, I missed it. Okay, I'd like to read another short text, which also comes from Maimonides, but this is from another book. This is from the Moreh Nevuchim, the Guide for the Perplexed. And Maimonides, the Rambam, says like this: we are told to offer our prayers to God in order to establish firmly the true principle that God takes notice of our ways, that he can make them successful if we serve him, or disastrous if we disobey him, that success and failure are not the result of chance or accident. So basically what Maimonides is saying is that prayer is not, we have a mitzvah to pray. We have a commandment to pray, not because God needs it, not because God needs our prayer, and not because we need to ask for the things that we want, because God probably knows it. What is prayer all about? Prayer is for us so that we could remind ourselves and we could realize, who really is in control, And where does everything come from? Everything that we have, the blessings that we have, the good things that we have, where does it come from? So prayer, so we're told to pray not because God needs our prayer, but we're told to pray so that to help us remember, where it's at, to help us remember that God is in the driver's seat, and that God is in charge, and he's in control, and he could give us what we need. So yeah, God knows what we need, just like we know what our children need, most of the time, hopefully. God knows what we need, but praying is not just about that. Praying is for us to realize, and for us to pay attention to the fact that God is God, and everything comes from him. I think nowadays this is something that is more in our face. Pre-COVID, you have your life organized, at least
You feel in charge.
plus minus, you feel in control. You could plan ahead, you could plan your life, but all of a sudden overnight everything changed. So I think that's something very very unfortunate, but in a way a very powerful thing. It's thrown into our face, the fact that how fragile the world is, how fragile we are, and how much in control God is, and how dependent we are on him, and how our plans don't necessarily mean so much. So this is what prayer is about. Prayer is about remembering, and it's about paying attention to this fact. Another thing is that when we pray and when we think about this fact, we end up putting more trust in God, right? So if you spend time thinking about the fact that God is in control, you'll end up thinking, okay, let me put my trust in him. I have some belief in God that he'll give us a better future, he'll give us a better year ahead, whatever it might be. So actually that thought of paying attention to this and thinking about this fact that God is in control leads us to placing more trust into God. And then we also merit that our prayers should be answered also, right? Because so something's happening over here. You're starting to pray to remember the fact and to pay attention to the fact that God is in control. But that leads you to have more trust in God, because you realize where it's really at and where the truth is. And once you have some more faith in God, then God is might be happier to give you, or to answer you faster, give you what you want. So that's something that you accomplished already, even before saying anything, even before saying what you want and asking for your needs. It also serves as a reminder. Prayer also serves as a reminder that we need to thank God, right? So again, when you pay attention to the fact that God is in control and he gives us what we have, so this should cause a person to feel grateful for what we already have, and to be thankful for what we already have. As difficult as life is, we have a lot going for us. We live in a comfortable time. We live in a comfortable house. We're paying the bills. Our kids are happy. More or less, we have a lot. Everyone has a lot to be thankful for. So when you take the time to think about the fact, and to pay attention to the fact that everything comes from God, then you also automatically take the opportunity to feel more grateful, to think more thankful, to be more thankful, and to give thanks for what we know that we have, and for the blessings that we already have in our lives. Another feature of prayer is that when we ask for things, when we pray, deep down we know that we don't necessarily deserve what we're asking for, right? So we ask for a lot. We ask for success, we ask for happiness, we ask for health, we ask for a lot. Not necessarily, deep down we know that not necessarily are we deserving of so much, but nevertheless we're asking for it. We're expecting and hoping that God will give it to us, and hopefully, our requests will be fulfilled and will be answered. And when we think about that, realize that we're asking for things that we don't necessarily deserve, and think about the fact that we're receiving things that we don't necessarily deserve, that helps us give to other people even if they don't necessarily deserve it, right? So somebody asks you for a favor, a relative or a friend, or whatever it might be, and you think they don't deserve it. I should go out of my way for them. I should give up of my time, give up of my money, inconvenience myself, whatever it might be. Do I really have to do this? And prayer allows us to realize that a lot of the things that we have in our lives are not necessarily because we deserve it. It's just because we have been shown certain kindness by God. We've had certain opportunities, we had certain mazal, certain luck, if you will, and it comes from somewhere. It comes from somewhere, and this could help us be there for other people when they ask us for help, or even if they don't ask us for help. We could be there for other people because even if they don't deserve it, right? So we have a lot of things that we don't necessarily deserve. This could help us pay attention to this fact and be there for other people, even if you might say to yourself, "Oh, they don't deserve it." So, to summarize in two words, what we said up until this point is that prayer is number one, asking for our needs, but perhaps most importantly, it's about connecting to God. It's about connecting to God, and connecting to God means now you're realizing and thinking about God. You're realizing what He has given you. You're realizing that He's in control. You're thinking about the fact that we should be thankful to Him. We should be kind to others, just like we've been given, special opportunities and things like that. So prayer is much more than asking needs. Prayer is perhaps most importantly about connecting to God. Connecting to God. God knows what we need, and God doesn't need our prayers, but He wants us to pay attention for our benefit. We mentioned some of the benefits. This brings us back to Paul's question: what exactly is the translation of tefillah? Right? We were talking about the Hebrew word for prayer. So tefillah, I believe that it is not I don't think it's a modern Hebrew word, tefillah. Is it, Omri? Kind of. But correct me if I'm wrong, the root of the word tefillah is like tofel. And it has a certain meaning of connection, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not so familiar with this word. I don't think it's really used so much, but apparently tefillah comes from the word tofel, which means connection. Any comment there from the
Hebrew speaker?
From Omri?
Can you hear me? Or?
Yeah, now I hear you. Let me pick up my volume a little bit. Yeah, I hear you.
Well, actually, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
What's that again?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's not modern Hebrew. It's not really used in any other context except for tefillah. But according to my research and what the commentaries say is that tefillah, the root word is tofel, and it's about connection. So while most commonly tefillah is translated as prayer, that's actually a mistranslation, because prayer means asking for needs. The definition of prayer, if you look it up in the dictionary, I think prayer means asking for needs, but that's not what tefillah is. And like we mentioned in the beginning, if it was only about asking needs, then we could say bakasha, we could say words like that. We could say she'elah, bakasha. I'm sure there are more words. Tefillah is a very unusual word, but it is in fact tefillah because the translation is not prayer. The translation is connection. So that shows us that the primary idea and function of tefillah is about connecting to God. It's about like we were saying before, it's not God doesn't need it, and God knows what we want, and God knows what we need, but it's about us. It's for our benefit. Prayer gives us these benefits.
No, is it the same word?
Tefillin is a different word.
It's never in tefillah.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. It actually might be because it's the same concept. We'd have to look into that.
Maybe that's an interesting idea. Mushki's saying that maybe the word tefillin is related to the word tefillah and tafel. So that's interesting.
Because that really is the concept of tefillin, that you're connecting.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Does the word tefillin show up in the Torah?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it
in
does.
Shema Yisrael.
Right. That's very interesting.
So now that we talked a little bit of the background of tefillah, of prayer, let's get a little bit more specific. So we ask for all kinds of things, and you ever see somebody ever go to synagogue? You're not going to see this on Shabbat, but if you go to synagogue during the weekday, or if you go to the kotel, if you go to any place where there's prayer going on, you see a lot of charity boxes, tzedakah, and you see people giving charity and things like that. And if you think about it for a moment, what are they trying to do, right? So there is a certain custom of giving some money to charity before you pray. So you're doing something for God. You're not just asking, you're not just taking, but you're also giving, right? You're not just saying you're saying it's not just about what I need and what I want, but I'm actually going to do something for God, and I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something for someone else, and I'm going to, do a mitzvah. So yeah, it's a nice custom that, so that's why you always see kupat tzedakah. You'll see like a charity box or multiple charity boxes in a synagogue or in other places where people are praying, like the Western Wall, things like that. If you think about it, it's a little funny. Are we bribing God? Right? So you're saying, I want God to listen to what I have to say. I want God to give me what I want. Let me do something. Let me throw him a couple of kroners. Let me do something to. Yeah.
Get some brownie cookies.
Is that what we're trying to do? Is that what we're trying? Could we? Is God so easy to bribe? And could we change his mind? Right. So what's the point of prayer? Right. Prayer. You're trying to accomplish something. You think that next year might be a problematic year. So I'm going to say no. Let's change that. Let's make it a better year. Let's make next year a better year than this year. Let's make today better than yesterday. So what's happening over here? Let's say next year is supposed to be a bad year. God forbid. But let's say next year is supposed to be a bad year. Oh, so you're going to change God's mind. You're going to change God's mind. You're going to say, oh no, I know you had plans to, to give us the,
Like last year, God decided this year because of COVID.
you might have decided that next year should be with a COVID and who knows what else. But actually, no, we're asking you to change your mind and give us something else. Give us something better. So what's going on over here? Do we think that we could change God's mind? A, and B, do we think that he's so easy to bribe that we could just give him a few kroners, a few dollars before we start to pray, and that's going to be the magic that does it?
100%.
Anybody have a
I'd say no to both questions.
no to both? So then why do we?
Yes to both.
So then why do we keep doing it? Why do we keep asking for something to change, and why do we keep
It says that, it says that I don't know the exact word, but that a Jewish soul is above the mazal, right? That we have power over what's determined. So
Like predestination.
Right.
Yeah.
It says that it can control, right?
Okay.
2 examples.
Paul, yes.
Abraham, Sodom and Gomorrah. First he could destroy everybody, but then, he bargained,
Right?
all the way down to 10. So I
He
mean,
changed God's mind.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then
God did destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, though.
yes, but
There was a
it
negotiation
was
going on.
unconditional at first, and then became conditional.
So is that the kind of God
Okay,
that?
there's just one other example was
Yeah.
with Moses when he came down the mountain. He was ready to kill everybody, and then he talked them out of it.
Right. So Moshe prayed on behalf of the Jewish people after they sinned so that they shouldn't be punished.
Right.
And then God ultimately changed his mind.
Mhm.
So what's going on here? So it looks like we could change God's mind.
Also, there is a lot.
But what kind of God is that? Is that the God that we believe in? A God that we could just change his mind so easily? Is that
It's a God that's more human than any other human.
okay? So I'll give you another perspective on bribing God and changing God's mind. Okay, another perspective, and that perspective is that we're not changing God's mind, and we're not bribing God. What we're doing is changing ourselves. Okay, so when you give charity, when you give tzedakah, you're doing something to yourself. You're making yourself a better person. When you pray to God and you're saying you want God to change his mind, you're not saying that God should change. You're saying that I am changing. You're telling God, I am a new person. I'm starting fresh. I'm erasing what happened today or yesterday and now focusing on the future. So what's happening is you're not saying to God, oh, you have a certain plan, now change your plan and I'll convince you to change your plan by giving charity. That's not what's happening. What's happening is you're saying to God, yeah, you had a plan. You had a plan for Paul for something to happen, but I'm actually not Paul anymore. Now I'm Pinchas, or now I'm a new Paul. And that's what prayer is. And that's what, and charity is just an expression of that, or it's just an example of that. We're doing something, we're taking some action, which is in a way changing ourselves. It's not easy to give away from our hard-earned money. It's not easy to get up and do somebody a favor when we're just in the mood of relaxing. But so going out of our way is actually in a way making a change to ourselves, to our character. And that's what we're doing when we pray. We're basically saying, don't change, we're saying to God, you don't have to change your mind, but we are changing who we are, so now we're deserving of something else. So maybe this morning I didn't deserve what I'm asking for now, but now I am actually a different person. Maybe a small change. I'm slightly different, but I'm different. I moved up a little bit. I moved ahead. I advanced. I became a little bit of a better person. I became a little bit kinder. I became a little bit more patient. I became a little bit more loving. So this is what prayer is. Prayer is not about changing God. It's about changing ourselves.
There could be other factors. When Moses' situation, it could have been that what God wanted, and it was still motivated with the same, God, I believe it's the love of God that sets up these situations. But that Moses, he wasn't, he was saying to God that this would look too good for you. He was telling God, he wasn't saying, he wasn't talking about how he needs to develop his character or,
Right.
something like that. But on the other hand, what it could have been that God wanted the people to know that Moses had this kind of relationship with him that he wanted them to have with him, so that they wouldn't go make any more golden calves. They listen to what he said and have faith.
Right. So it could have been that God was waiting for it to come from us, right? You want
For them to be able to actually to have faith,
right,
and to behave.
That's a very good point.
And also, it could have been because it's like God was showing his anger, right? So, but also Moses was showing his anger before when he came down and broke those, right? So maybe he has to learn how to control his temper also. So he's asking God to please control your temper. So maybe it's something he needs to learn, because like you were saying, if you're asking, you're asking, somebody asks you and he doesn't deserve it, you might say to yourself, but then I don't deserve it. Well, if I'm going to ask God to control this temper, maybe I should control my temper.
Right. Very good. Good points. I'd like to share a story. This is a story from the book of Shmuel. I think we have the text. We have the text in front of us on the paper, and we're not going to read the whole thing. If you want, you could read it. It's actually not the whole story. It's the main part of the story that we have here. But I'll just share the story because it's a very, very interesting and unusual story. And basically, what happened was, yeah. It's very appropriate that we're sharing this story now, because we always read this story on Rosh Hashanah. And excuse me, the reason why we read the story on Rosh Hashanah, I think you'll see. I think it'll become obvious why we read the story on Rosh Hashanah. But I'll just give you a hint that it really shows the power of prayer. Rosh Hashanah, the new year, it's not exactly like the new year of January 1st where we're having fireworks and parties. Rosh Hashanah is a holiday and it is a festival, but there's also a certain seriousness to the day. So even though it's a celebration and it's a happy day, but there's also a certain seriousness because it is the day of judgment. And we're spending a lot of time praying and asking for a good year ahead. So the reason why we share the story on Rosh Hashanah and read the story on Rosh Hashanah is because it really gives us a perspective on prayer and teaches us about the power of prayer. So that's the introduction. The story goes like this. There was a woman, her name was Hannah. You might know her from the story. Her husband was Elkanah, and actually in those days it was quite common for a man to be married to multiple wives. Of course, nowadays that is not allowed. There actually it's for a very long time. It's been banned.
In Judaism.
It's been banned in Judaism. But in the olden days, it was something very common. So Hannah, she was one of two wives. her, I don't know what they would call each other, but her other, the other woman, her name was Penina. So there was Penina and Hannah, and they were married to Elkanah. Now Penina, actually there is a name for for the relationship between these two women. Okay, when there are two women in a marriage,
I'm not sure she's serious or not.
No, I am serious. They are referred to as each other's tzara, each other's pain.
Is that how it's really called?
Yeah,
In Talmud.
I think in the Talmud for sure. For sure in some of the commentaries, it refers to, I guess the relationship between them is a relationship of tsar. They cause pain to each other. This is, I guess, why it's been banned. But of course, there could be jealousy, there could be competition. There's all kinds of terrible things that such a situation could cause. And actually, in this marriage, Hannah got a lot of. Hannah was in a way abused by this other woman. She would say not nice things. She'd be rude to her, disrespectful to her, and things like that. It was a very, very unfortunate situation. And what made matters worse was that Penina had some children, but Hannah was not able to have children. So this was like another kind of jealousy between them. That Penina had this beautiful part to her life that Hannah was not able to have. So this was like another unfortunate aspect to this marriage and to this situation. So Hannah was very heartbroken, and she was bitter. And so this family, they had the tradition of going to the Bet HaMikdash. In those days, it wasn't the permanent Bet HaMikdash. It was the semi-permanent one, which was in the city of Shiloh,
The Mishkan.
the Mishkan. But it wasn't the traveling Mishkan. It was the Mishkan that was established in the city of Shiloh for many years. So it wasn't Jerusalem, but it was the city of Shiloh. I don't know if the name is Shiloh. Is that still a name of a place in Israel? I'm not 100%. It is,
yeah.
Okay. So there you have it. Hello, Massimo. Please make yourself comfortable. So they would go once a year to visit the Mishkan, to visit the Holy Temple. But it came a time Hannah was so broken, Hannah was so bitter about her situation, she decided to go alone to the Holy Temple and to pray to God, for some blessing and for some good things to happen. Anyways, she comes to the Holy Temple and she prays, but she prays silently. So only her lips were moving and nobody could hear what she's saying. And it was a very unusual thing because in those days, that was not the normal way to pray. So if you go to synagogue today, the climax of the prayers, a silent prayer, the Amidah is like a silent conversation between us and God. It's not about screaming and making noise. It's about, concentration, and it's silent. But this is something new. In the olden days, there was no such thing as silent prayer. But Hannah was the first one. She was the first one. She was so brokenhearted. She was so sad. She wanted to pray to God, and that's how she prayed. She prayed from her heart. It wasn't a show. It was pouring out her heart. Now, because this was such an unusual sight, the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, his name was Eli, and he saw this woman Hannah praying like this, and he thought that she was drunk. So he said, and I'll give you the quote. He said, and Eli said to her, "How long will you be drunk? Put away your wine from you." Basically, he was saying this is inappropriate. You're coming to the holy temple to speak to God. How could you come when you're under the influence? So what did Hannah answer? Hannah answered, "No, my lord, I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. Take not your maidservant for a worthless woman, for out of my great complaint and grief have I been speaking." So basically, she was saying that I'm not drunk, but I'm just pouring out my heart. And actually, what did she say in her prayer? She said she asked for a child, and she said that she told God that if you grant me a child, I will dedicate this child to you. And she repeated this prayer to the high priest, to the Kohen Gadol. And
Which means that she would raise him to be, following God, not like offering.
we'll find out in a second. So Eli, the high priest, was so moved by this woman's story, by Hannah's story, that he immediately blessed her. Sure enough, sometime passed. Hannah became pregnant, and she had a baby boy, and she named him Shmuel. And you might know Shmuel from the prophet Shmuel, who became the leader of the Jewish people, and he was the prophet of his generation. So that's what it means that so Hannah actually did dedicate Shmuel to God by bringing Shmuel to the Kohen Gadol, to the high priest in Shiloh from a very young age. He was only a child, but Hannah was already bringing him every single day to learn from the Kohen Gadol, to learn from Eli, to be educated by Eli. And in this way, this child was dedicated to God, and ultimately he became this great prophet, this famous prophet, and actually the leader of the Jewish people of that generation. So why am I sharing this story, and why do we read the story on Rosh Hashanah? The reason is, I think it's very obvious, because it shows us the power of prayer, right? Hannah was unable to have children. She probably went to the doctors and they were not able to help her. And so she came to pray to God to say, I was not able to have children, but please give me this blessing. I want to have this blessing in my life. I have a certain void. I have a certain bitterness. I have a certain sadness in my life. Give me something like this. And she was blessed with a child. So it's a very powerful story. But I think we could go into the story on a bit of a deeper level, and let's try to analyze the story and find a deeper message in the story. Because as we know from past classes, Judaism and Torah is multi-layered, and a simple story everything always has deeper messages, deeper meanings, and this is no exception. So let's analyze the story for a moment and see what kind of deeper message we could learn from this. How could it be that Eli was the high priest, the Kohen Gadol? How could it be that he made such a mistake? That he mistook this woman for a drunkard when in fact she was coming to pour out her heart to God. And now when you're talking about Eli was, he was a prophet in his own right. He was the leader of the Jewish people at that time. He was, a very special person in his own right. Was a reason why he was the Kohen Gadol. The reason why he was in that position. How could it be that he made such a drastic mistake? Not to say that people can't make mistakes, but this seems a bit.
He accused her, like he really wrongly accused her, right?
Right. he said, we read the words before. He said, how long will you be drunk? Put away your wine from you. You know, he came to rebuke her. You know, he came to, and he spoke to her like that. You know, how could this be? How could this be? You know, if it was just two regular people, so you could say, okay, somebody made a mistake. But Eli was not a regular person. He was the high priest. He was the person chosen to represent the Jewish people on Yom Kippur in the Holy Temple, in the holiest place. You know, he was a very important and very special person. So how could it be that, you know, he made such a mistake?
Well, if God could change the heart of the Pharaoh and make it hard, I'm sure he can get him to have this kind of an attitude toward her, or at least to bring out this explanation from her, so that he
Right.
can wind up recognizing that well, first of all, he feels somewhat repentful, and then he wants to bless her
Right, okay.
as strongly as better than he rebuked her.
Right.
Remorseful.
It makes him feel like he should do something for her after
Yeah, he would have.
Right. Okay. That's a good explanation. It's a good commentary. I like it. Basically saying that, you know, it put him in a position where he was more, or maybe he felt the responsibility to give her that blessing. Okay. So that's a good explanation. Another explanation. This is more of a Kabbalistic explanation, and, you know, a deeper insight into the story, is that what he was really asking was a different question. Okay, when Eli said, "Are you drunk?" he didn't mean drunk from wine. Now, on a simple level, he did mean that. Okay, so again, this is how Torah works. Torah, and especially when it comes to Kabbalah and things like that, there's the story, and the story happened the way it happened. But there could be a deeper layer of, and there could be a deeper layer of the story. So he could have said one thing, meant one thing on a simple level, but it could be that it had a deeper message hinted in the words that he said. And that's what we're gonna share right now. And this is based on the Kabbalah.
Very common to teachers to students. Like they say like one thing on the surface that you really,
Right. Sometimes some years after you learn something from your teacher, you'll realize that your teacher also was hinting to something much more than what you understood at that time. Okay, so certainly someone like Eli, who was a prophet, and he was the Kohen Gadol. Certainly, he was able to to stick deeper messages into the things that he was saying. So when he said to Hannah, "Why are you drunk? Why are you drinking and coming here under the influence?" he was also asking another question. He was saying that this is you're out of control. Your prayer is out of control, and it's inappropriate. Just like drinking is inappropriate, this prayer of yours is not appropriate, and it's out of place. It doesn't belong here, and how long will you go on like this? What does that mean? Where was she? She was coming to the house of God, to the Beit HaMikdash, and if we could compare this to a situation that we could relate to a little bit more. In the olden days, they had kings, right? So imagine you coming and standing before the king. What are you going to say when you're in front of the king? Now we don't have kings nowadays. Well, we have some kings, but they're not like the kings of the olden days. The most we have now is prime minister or a king or queen figure, and they don't have the same type. They don't have the same power that the olden day kings had, and they don't have. It's completely different. But we could use our imagination a little bit. When you're standing in front of the king, if you disrespect the king in any way, or if you show something against the king could have you executed immediately without it needing to be prosecuted by a court and this and that. That was just because the king commanded so much respect and honor and all of this. And so anyone who comes in front of the king, is extremely focused on the king, not on themselves, but on the king. And you're going to be careful. You're going to be careful with every single action, any move that you make, any word that you say. And even if you take an example of today, if someone has the opportunity to meet the prime minister, perhaps it's not dangerous to be in front of the prime minister. If you do something wrong, you're not going to be put in jail. But out of respect, try to put yourself in the shoes of someone who's going into the prime minister's office. Imagine you're going into the prime minister's office and you have an opportunity. And perhaps you're going in to meet the most powerful person in the world. So there's a certain awe, there's a certain honor, respect that you give to this person, whoever he or she is. And of course, you're not focusing on your petty issues. You're focusing on the big picture. You're focusing on issues of the world, issues, and you're not gonna focus on your petty things. And this is what Eli was saying to Hannah. He was saying, you're coming to the house of God. You're coming and you're asking for a child. This is the house of God. You're in front of you're speaking to the king of all kings. You're speaking to God himself, the creator of the world. You're coming and you're bringing your issues here. This is not the right way. It's like you're drunk. You lost control. You don't realize where you are. You don't realize who you're speaking to. You don't realize what you should be saying, what you should be talking about. That's what Eli said to her. So he wasn't saying that you're drunk, or he wasn't only saying that you're drunk. He was saying, how could you make this prayer at this place and this time? What did Hannah answer? Hannah said, I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have poured out my soul before the Lord. I poured out my soul before the Lord. And she was saying something very powerful. And again, on a simple level, she was saying, no, I didn't drink, I'm just praying. But on a deeper level, explains the Kabbalah. What was she saying? She was alluding to something very powerful and very fundamental. What she was saying was, and the Kabbalah explains this based on a verse in Tehillim. It says, Re'evim gam tzmeim nafsham bahem titataf. And what it means is that what's the translation?
Hungry and also thirsty.
What was that?
The translation is like this. They're hungry and thirsty, but they want the soul. That's what the verse says. Very unusual verse. They're hungry and thirsty. What they want is the soul. What does that even mean? What is that talking about? It's a verse in Tehillim. So the Baal Shem Tov, who lived about 250 years ago, he gives a very fascinating explanation to this verse, and this is actually what Hannah was hinting to, and this is what she was alluding to. And basically, what the verse is saying is, when you're hungry and thirsty, when you have a certain desire for some food or drink, what is causing you to have? What is pulling you towards that food or drink? So you could say, I'm just hungry. I need to fill my stomach. But actually, David HaMelech in Tehillim is saying something else. He's saying, Nafsham bahem titataf. What you're being attracted to this food or this drink, and you have a desire for it, but you're being pulled to it not only because you're hungry, not only because you're hungry for the food, but you're actually hungry for the soul of the food. That's why the verse says, they're hungry and they're thirsty, they're searching for the soul. What's the connection? So this is what it means. It means that when you have a desire for this piece of cake, so on a simple level, your body is just hungry. But on a deeper level, it's the soul of the cake that you need and that you long for. What does that mean? What's the soul of the cake? The soul of the cake is the purpose of the cake. It's the purpose of the food. It's the spark. It's the godly spark that's in it. And what that means is that we could do something good with that food or drink. So for example, you could eat something, have energy, and then do something positive with that energy. Or you could take food and drink and incorporate it into a mitzvah, like a Shabbat meal, a Rosh Hashanah dinner, things like that. So where the food could actually be could become holy, and it could be part of a mitzvah. And the reason, and that's really, so the food has a purpose. The purpose of the food is that the food should be elevated, right? There's a spark, there's a godly spark within the food that wants to reconnect with God, that wants to fulfill its purpose. So actually everything in this world has a purpose, and every single thing has, a certain spark of life, a certain spark of spirituality that could be elevated and could be reunited with its source. And so what David HaMelech is saying, explains the Baal Shem Tov, is that when you're hungry for the cake, what really is happening is your soul is hungry for the spark that's embedded within that food, because your soul understands the need and wants to fulfill and wants to utilize this food and drink for something positive, for a mitzvah, and then reunite its spark with its source. So that's what it means. You're hungry, you're thirsty. What you really want is the soul of whatever it is that you're asking. And this is what Hannah was saying. Hannah was saying, if I'll give you the quote, I poured out my soul before the Lord. What was she saying? She was saying that she wasn't just asking for a child because she wanted a child so she could feel good and she could feel like a mother, and she could feel her natural desire, to give birth to a child and to raise a child. What she was saying was that this is coming from my soul. This prayer is coming from my soul. And that means that it's not just about me, it's about the bigger picture. It's about the child and what the child could do in the world, and what the child could do for the Jewish people, and what the child could do for God. So Eli was saying, how could you come here drunk? And on a deeper level, he was saying, how could you come here to pray for your own things? How could you come and pray for your food and drink like that? This is not a place you come to ask for your food and drink. And then what she answers is, it's not just for me. It's for my soul. This is coming from my soul. This is besides for my natural desires. This is also for the greater purpose. And this is also why I'm dedicating my child to God. I'm going to educate him in the house of God with the Kohen Gadol, with the high priest, and ultimately, he becomes Shmuel Hanavi, Shmuel the prophet. What were you thinking, Mushki? Mm-hmm. Sorry.
No, I was just thinking. On the other hand, Judaism and prayer in Judaism gives a lot of space for that kind of prayer, where somebody is crying, pouring out their heart and everything. So in a sense, like, of course, in that case, Eli was saying, what is this? It's not appropriate in the way she was doing it. But yet, the story of Hannah is an inspiration to a lot of prayer. In today's
much more than inspiration. And I'll tell you something that Eli stood corrected. Okay? And actually, if you look into the customs of prayer, a tremendous amount of our prayer today is learned from Hannah. which means that what Chana contributed to prayer and what Chana taught us about prayer is so powerful and so important that this is the prayer that we have today. So actually, Chana was teaching the Kohen Gadol a lesson. Chana was teaching Eli a lesson, and Chana was saying something that he didn't know. Up until that point, prayer was there was a certain way to pray. And Chana changed that. And Eli recognized that. And from then on, Jewish prayer became fundamentally different. So this is actually an unbelievable contribution that Chana made. So on two levels. On a simple level, there are many things that we learn from Chana how to pray. We learn from Chana how to stand silently, right? It's not about screaming and shouting to God and making noise. It's about silent prayer. We learn that from Chana. It's about concentration, coming from the heart. This is what we learn from Chana. And if you look into the Talmud and you look into the Torah, you look into the Code of Jewish Law, everything that we know about prayer, or I should say a tremendous amount that we know about prayer, comes and is based on this story of Chana. So this is a tremendous contribution that Chana gave to us, and that's on a basic level. On a deeper level, what Chana was teaching us was what is prayer? What is prayer? Is it just about my needs? What she was saying was that when you might think that it's just for yourself, you might think you're saying you're praying to God that I should get a raise. My boss should agree to give me a raise, or I should get new clients. I should be able to make new sales, whatever it might be. So you think when you say that prayer, you're thinking about your own bank account. I want to be more comfortable. I want to buy nice things for myself, for my family. So Chana is saying, you might think that you're asking just for yourself, but actually it's your soul that needs it. Your soul needs the raise also. Your soul also needs those new clients. Why does your soul need it? Because your soul could use it for a good purpose, and your soul could elevate it to and realize its purpose in the world. So with more money, that means you could help more people. That means that you could give more tzedakah, you could give more charity. It means that you could have more time on your hands to invest in your family and to other things that are important to you. So I'm sure everyone could think of a million examples. But what Chana was teaching us on a deeper level is that while you might think that the needs that you're asking for are just your needs, it's actually much more than that. And while they are your needs, it is also your mission to elevate and to make holy these things that you have the opportunity to come in contact with. So when you're attracted to something, you're attracted to a nice house or a nice car, or to more money, or to whatever it might be, your soul is attracted to the godly spark within those things, and to use it for its ultimate purpose, which is always going to be something positive, a mitzvah to do for someone else, to do for God. And this is Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is a time when we celebrate. It's a happy occasion. It's a festival, but it's also in a way a serious holiday, because we're thinking about the past year and the next year ahead, how we can make it better. And we're asking for a Shana Tova. We're asking for a good year. And so there's a lot of prayer incorporated in this holiday. So tomorrow night before we have the dinner, we're going to take 15 minutes to say the traditional Rosh Hashanah prayer. It's a very powerful prayer, and there's a lot of prayer around the whole Rosh Hashanah celebration. There's prayer in the morning, there's prayer in the evening. Prayer is a very fundamental part of this holiday. Actually, every holiday, but especially Rosh Hashanah. And so this story really gives us deep insight first of all, how to pray, but also what prayer is really all about. So just to summarize, everything that we spoke about, and also because you missed a little bit of the beginning, I'll give you a quick recap so we get the whole picture. We started talking about what is prayer. Is it simply asking our needs? And what we discovered was that prayer is much more than that. Prayer is about connection. God doesn't need us to pray, and God knows what we need. God knows more than anyone else, perhaps more than ourselves, what we need. But he wants us to pray because prayer is for our benefit, so we could realize, we could pay attention, and we could remember who is in control and where everything we have comes from. So when we pray, we realize, yes, God is in control and everything that we have comes from God. So prayer is for us to get into that mode and to get into that perspective and to realize this. When we realize this, we have gratitude, we give thanks, and we also realize that just like God gives us things that we don't necessarily deserve, we should be kind enough to give to others, even if they don't necessarily deserve it. We also talked about changing God's mind. Could we really change God's mind? And could we talked about the custom of giving tzedakah, giving charity, donating money before prayer. Could we bribe? Are we bribing God, saying, I'm going to give you money and now, give me what I want? Could I change God's mind? God had a certain plan for me for the next year, and I'm saying, no, give me a better year than you have in mind. Could we do that? And the answer we gave was that no, we're not bribing God, and we're not changing God. We're changing ourselves. So when you pray, prayer is about is about changing yourself, making yourself a better person, giving that tzedakah, giving that charity, refines your character, makes your character better. And the last thing we shared was the story of Hannah, on a basic level, taught us the power of prayer, that you could actually achieve something that was previously impossible. Previously, Hannah was unable to have children, and then through this prayer, she was blessed with a child. And on a deeper level, it teaches us what prayer is in terms of our needs. When we talk about our needs, it's actually we might think that it's just what we want and it's just what we desire and just what we need, but it actually is our soul longing for extra opportunities to do good, to do mitzvahs with these opportunities, with these new resources that we have now, or that we will have soon.
Okay.
So I think we could each think about the fact that, with Rosh Hashanah coming and thinking about a good year ahead, and we need a better year than the previous year, but we now we can have.
I saw an amazing.
Now we
meme.
can have a new appreciation for what prayer is, and for what our needs are. So you might think that you want a COVID-free world so that you could have your normal life, and you can go to the bar, and you can go to the swimming pool, and you could travel the world and see nice things. So you might think that your request for a COVID-free world is that people shouldn't have pain, and people shouldn't be sick, and you should be able to have a nice life that you're used to having. But in fact, what we learned tonight is that there's much more to life than just these needs that you're thinking about. Good health and pleasures and enjoyment, all of these things are very important. But on top of that, there's something that your soul is looking for. Your soul is looking for normal life, because there are opportunities in that normal life that you didn't have, that perhaps you didn't have in the last few months. And those opportunities could be used for positivity, for a mitzvah, for God. You might think that traveling and sightseeing and going to nice places is so that you should have a nice time, but actually your soul is pulling you to that place because there's something that you could accomplish in that place, that there's an opportunity waiting for you there that you can't that you can't do if you're here, and if there's the situation that we're in now. So this really, I think what we found out tonight was what is prayer all about, but also what are our needs all about. Our needs are on a superficial level just our needs, but on a deeper level is so much more that our soul is longing for.
Beautiful.
L'chaim.
L'chaim. Beautiful.
Any questions, comments, arguments?
Yeah.